Well, we're back like we never left. Happy New Year and welcome back to the podcast that talks about all things high school baseball here in the state of Georgia, Peach Fuzz. My name is Ian Smith and I'm the Assistant Scouting Director here at Press Baseball Georgia. And I'm joined here today and every week by our humble leader and Scouting Director of Press Baseball Georgia, Hudson Graham. How you doing today, Huddy?
Doing well. Happy to be back. Fresh new logo coming in for you guys. So we're excited to get this thing back rolling.
Yeah, man, this is awesome, man. We're going to be here every week talking all things, like I just mentioned, all things baseball. And we have upcoming showcases as soon as this weekend, which we'll get into a little bit later. We have the Power 25 coming up for this year's 2025 season. We have the high school season just 5 weeks away now. So we're here. We're time to get back into baseball, and we're here to talk about all things.
Yeah, definitely. We want to do some new things this year with the podcast. I want to bring some people on board, do some interviews with players, coaches throughout the week as we get rolling into the high school season. The plan is we'll record it on Mondays right after a full week of baseball, and then we'll get it released on Wednesdays. So we want to be consistent this year. We want to talk about, all the things that you guys want to see. So definitely want some feedback as we get rolling with this thing, but excited to get the season kicked off this weekend in South Georgia.
Yeah, man, we're back into it. I've been counting down the days since we stopped. I mean, these last 2 months in the offseason really have felt kind of weird for me. I haven't really known what to do with myself. This year was as busy as we could have been, and this upcoming year might be even busier. Just to jump right into things today, what we're going to talk about, the 2028 rankings. Just released last week, the initial rankings, both statewide and internationally. We had a bunch of guys from the state of Georgia ranked. We ranked over 100 guys in this year's class, so that'll be huge to talk about. And we're also going to mention some of the brand new high school team previews that have been coming out the last few weeks. We recently put out some emails to all the coaches in the state trying to get everybody's previews in. We've already seen about 60 coming in the last 2 weeks. So teams are flying in. We'll talk about some of the teams that we've already wrote up so far this year.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The 2028 rankings are always exciting to drop that first initial rankings for each class. And obviously this spring, it's our goal to find all the freshmen, in the state of Georgia making an impact at the varsity level. And one thing to think about too is, there's so many players that develop at different times. So, the ranking process is ongoing. Obviously, we know all freshmen aren't going to play varsity as freshmen, just with how competitive we are in 5A, 6A, really throughout the whole classification. So we're excited to see this young class to get out and see them this spring.
And to think about it, we've seen so many guys this past summer, and even in the fall and back in the spring somewhat, with some guys getting some early playing time. But we have over 100 kids ranked in this first class. That's ridiculous. I believe it might be the highest number across the company. I mean, we've seen so many guys. Obviously, having Lake Point in the backyard and having these facilities in the state of Georgia is fantastic. So having the number one player, as I jump ahead here a little bit, having the number one player in the country is huge for us. Dexter McLeon Jr. is kind of an alien to term I like to use a lot. He's he's a number one nationally ranked player in the country, like I just mentioned. He's upcoming at the perennial powerhouse Buford High School as well. Does all things as a 5-tool player at 15 years old. So just talk to me a little about what type of player McLeon is and where he can be at this next level now that he's reaching high school baseball finally, as he's been for so long.
For sure. And we've been following him, for ever since that even 11 and 12U ranked, because having the spring schedule that we have with youth tournaments, it's good for us because we get to see a lot of these players as they start to develop. And he was pretty much almost, obviously he's gotten bigger over the years, but he looked, nearly the same when he was on 12U TGD backs. They're beating teams by 10, 15 runs every single game. He's mid to upper 80s, and then fast forward to now, and he's bumping 93, 94s and hitting home runs left and right. So it's just one of those special talents. Like we mentioned, I don't think we've ever had a number one player in the country for the state of Georgia. Obviously short-lived in Georgia. We've only been, here since 2019 as Prep Baseball. So it's awesome to see that number one player for us in the country, and can't wait to see him this spring at Buford.
I remember moving. We got here this is a year to the day that I moved to the great state of Georgia. So I remember last spring that really, I knew about who Dexter was, but first just seeing him, and I think the first clip I saw of him might have been the opening night for JV baseball last year, and he went Oppo, no doubt, and in a huge Buford, which is just silly. And I was like, you just knew this is a different type of kid. And then all the stuff that we saw him do this summer and then this fall as well, it was exciting to see, and it's gonna be impressive with what we see going forward this spring. But leading more into this 28 class, it's not just Dexter. The depth is there. We talked about Colin Anderson, the guy who who might find a starting spot for one of the state returning state champions here in the state of Etowah. He's a top 10 player in the country. And another guy, Leo Garcia. These are two of the best gloves we've seen in a long time at this age group.
Yeah.
These are guys I know you've seen a bunch. And I just wanted you to highlight a little bit, just first with Anderson and a little bit with Leo as well.
Yeah, definitely. Colin was a junior future gamer for us as a 13-year-old, and seeing him recently at some workouts, he's really shot up. He looks the part on a varsity field. He's not going to look undersized as a freshman, like he's going to fit right in. The glove is really, really good, but I think for him it's just the power. His swing looks so effortless, and balls just fly off his bat. So he'll be at preseason All-State coming up here in a couple weeks, and I can't wait to see him in that setting where we haven't got a chance to see him in a while. But honestly, any other player besides Dexter, Colin's probably the number one player in the state. Across the country, he's ranked top 10 nationally. So it's really often to see both those guys, ranked in the top 10 for us nationally. And then Leo's another one we've seen for the last few years. It's just athleticism throughout. The glove is really, really good. Great kid, hit tools there. He's starting to get stronger. And that's going to be the name of the game for a lot of these kids is their development, right? So Dexter's already developed, but, Leo's starting to add his strength. Colin's really coming into his power, even though he already, was hitting balls out left and right with a drop 5 at 13U. But now he's starting to fill out. So really excited for both of them to see him at Etowah and at Buford for Leo. I think both of them will see considerable varsity time this year.
Leo and Dexter on the same varsity team as freshmen will be must-watch baseball for these guys this year and going forward the next 4 years.
For sure.
And as we just lean into this 28 class just a little bit more before we move forward, I want to talk about the overall speed in this class. I think it starts at the top and it just goes all the way throughout. The state of Georgia always is known for the speed and athleticism, but this class feels a little bit different. Every one of these guys is already a sub-7 runner, and some are even 6'6", 6'5" type of guys. We have guys like Andrew Cochran and Rylan Jenkins, Isaiah Kador, Grant Chaffin, Andrew Akabov, and then farther down the list, you got guys like Jake Adamson, who's a 6'5" runner, who's probably in the 30 or 40 ranked in our top 100, which is just insane to talk about. You don't find that speed all the time, and to have this type of athleticism with the projection that's still remaining in a ton of these guys, it's huge to see, and it just kind of points to how special this 28 class can be in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, most definitely. And the cool thing about this class is as we look through this list of the 100 guys that we have in there, it's like some of these guys could pop into the top 20, top 15, at any moment. It's just we need a bigger sample size to see these guys more and more. Logan Arnett could have some of the more electric stuff on the mound. He's gotten really, really developed. We'll see him at Harrison this year. Thomas Davis at North Hall, who I know you love, is going to be another one that's going to see varsity time. And then as you go, all the way down into the 30s, you have Jake Adamson, who could be one of the fastest kids in the state that we'll get to see at the varsity level this year too. So that's what makes me so excited about these 28 rankings is that, the amount of kids that we have put eyes on this early in their career is something to look forward to for the years to come.
Yeah, I mean, since I've got here, it's just like this. The classes have just gotten more and more special. It feels like. I mean, maybe that's just us getting more and more involved. But when I got here, the 2025 class is depth. Obviously, we have a ton of guys in that class going to Super 60, some draft prospect. 26s, which our first group together in future games. I thought the 27 group, and still think the 27 group is special. But it just continues to go and continues to grow. This 28 group is just something that's going to be fun to watch, and I'm excited to see them from the beginning of their high school career and be able to be a part of it throughout the whole process. So
that's been one. Go ahead. Sure, that's been one of my favorite things is taking over as scouting director a few years ago is seeing these kids as freshmen and then being able to watch them all the way through their senior year. Really that 25 class was the first group that I was able to see. And then now obviously moving in to the 26s and 27s, this will be the second, third year that we'll get out to see them. The 200 plus games that you and I saw last spring, which will probably, get up over that even again this year. We just want to put eyes on all these kids so we feel good about, the rankings and all that stuff that we put out.
Yeah, and that leads me right into what we're going to talk about next year, and that's the preseason state all-Ds, our preseason IDs, and the preseason all-state, which we have coming up this weekend and then going forward the next few weekends. We're talking about getting out and seeing the entire state. That's something we like to pride ourselves on in at Prep Baseball Georgia. We're not a huge team here. Three guys, 4 guys maximum at one time. So we want to see as many teams as possible, and that starts with this weekend. We're heading down to Lowndes High School to do South Georgia preseason ID, which is going to be a big group. It's going to be excited to get down there again. We were just down there in the fall. We went out to Colquitt County and saw a ton of guys there. So it's exciting to get down there just a few months later and see even more guys. There's a few guys down in that area that I already loved and excited to see in this setting, and then just leaned into that a little bit more. I don't mean to ramble here a little bit, but we're finishing up that day at Lowndes, packing up and heading straight up to Augusta to run an event the next day. So we want to hit each corner of the state this spring, and it starts this weekend.
Yeah, and that's something I've been looking forward to. This is the biggest preseason that we've ever had. So like I said, count down the days to get down to South Georgia on Saturday and then over to Augusta on Sunday. And our goal with these IDs is to come to you guys, right? We want to be able to highlight each, players in that area of the state. And we do that with team previews. And then we also do that with IDs. So, these IDs, it's a great time to be able to drive, 15 minutes to hour and a half down the road instead of driving 5-6 hours to Lake Point, above north of Atlanta. And like I said, getting to Augusta for the first time is going to be really big for us. We're going to Augusta Christian. And that's going to be another really fun group that we're able to see those guys, Evans, Lakeside, Harlem, obviously big state championship contender the last few years. We want to make sure we can highlight each high school and each players in different parts of the state. And then after this weekend, we'll come back up here for the East Georgia ID at IVS training over in Flowery Branch, which is going to be another really big one for us. Lucky enough to find an indoor facility that we can do almost everything at. And then Sunday, it's looking like it might be a little chilly with this Arctic blast they're calling coming in. So it's looking like we might have to go indoors for that one. And then following up with the preseason all states the following weekend, having an underclass and upper class group this year is going to be big. So really looking forward to all 5 of those events coming up here in the next 3 weeks.
And just speaking on preseason all-state, that's something we're going to really dive into next week on this episode on this show as well. They're 2 of the best rosters we've put together for an event ever at Prep Baseball Georgia. So I think it's something that really we want to highlight and just highlight the type of talent we're going to see in one place over 2 days here in Flowery Branch. So I think that's going to be really exciting and something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, like I said, counting down the days. Having it in two age groups this year is probably the most exciting thing for me. We were able to bring in a lot of the 28s this year. Last year, we couldn't bring in as many of the 27s just because the other 3 classes kind of got us full pretty quick. But like I said, having the 27s and 28s and then the 25s and 26s split up, we're looking at 2 really fun days coming up here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. It's what we live for, and it's just getting back into it here just January 1st. I mean, not too many states can really do this type of thing that we do. I mean, even being 40 degrees outside, we still got a ton of baseball to watch. In warm areas, we're inside. It's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. But you mentioned we were just talking about it. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, this was your first event. This was your first event last year.
Sure.
So, high expectations from last year, but I think we should be in a good spot this year.
Yeah, doubling up in attendance is something that you can't really compete with. But yeah, love it. But yeah, you mentioned something as we were talking about, as we were just talking about the upcoming events, and that's the high school previews. We've already knocked out about 10 to 15 high school previews out of a deep group that I mentioned earlier in the episode. And I mean, there's already teams that are standing out as we get closer and closer. As we're just 5 weeks away from high school baseball. So excuse me, so I'm gonna get rid of that. But so a few of the teams that have really looked apart so far, I know teams that I've had the chance to write up, such as Coffee County or North Paulding. What's some of the ones that really stood out for you so far?
Yeah, I just finished up doing Fellowship Christian. And for me, they're returning their entire team. So that's a rare thing to see in the state. So having their whole team back, they pretty much played nearly like all underclassmen last year. So they're going to be back with a really, really strong sophomore class in Reed Harkey, who we've talked about a lot. Huge riser in the 27 rankings, 6'7" runner, looks the part at shortstop, feel for the barrel. Really, really good hit tool. It's just going to get better as we go. James Sharp is another sophomore for them that we've been able to see a lot over the years at Pro Stock. Jonathan Granby, QB1 for him, outfielder. He's going to be another one to keep an eye on for them. But that's really the first one that comes to mind, just fresh off doing it. But then you got Hillgrove is another one that I was able to we were able to publish a couple weeks ago, and they're going to be really top heavy with the 25s with Avery Wilson and Carson Vick kind of leading the way from them. And then they have Dylan Honro. Sorry if I messed that up, Dylan. But with some really good speed coming up as well. Jordan Walker, left-handed bat. They're going to be really a dynamic group that could steal a lot of bags, score a lot of runs if they can put that pitching together. And then last one, which I know we kind of tag teamed on, was North Hall, who we've really liked over the years. They have Branson Crawford and Smith McGarvey coming in this year, which is going to be two huge assets for them. Like we mentioned, Thomas Davis is going to have a chance to make an impact as a freshman for them. And then you have catcher Kenny Foudy, who's been a staple for us over the last couple of years. Mills Lothridge is going to be one of their senior leaders along with Micah Jimerson. So the list goes on and on for them. I think they're going to have another strong season. They were in a tough region last year and weren't able to get into the playoffs, but I think we should see them back in the playoffs this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I almost forgot how enjoyable writing these team previews were. You learn so much about a team in such a short period of time. I mean, even before the season starts, you go into it with an understanding of who these teams are supposed to be. And I just mentioned earlier with North Paulding, it's a team that lost 2 Power 4 commits in Deshaun Morgan and Caden Sheffield, who went to Missouri and Georgia Tech respectively. And they still return a ton of talent that has a chance to compete for another deep playoff run as they made last year. They were made to the Final Four before meeting up with the eventual state champions in 7A Lowndes. But this is a team that returns guys like Yenli Nolasco, who's going to be a two-way guy who's going to be huge on the mound and in center field for them. Lucas Fargo is an arm that I really fell in love with last year. He's going to be probably their number 2 this year. He's a Wofford commit, really low slot, low 90s with a really good slider. It's funky stuff, hard to barrel up. The guy that I've really fell in love with, Cade Cox, starting shortstop for them, is a junior, one of the top uncommitted players we have in the state right now. Really has been a 3-year starter for them, has really grown in every year, and now finds a chance to be the guy as a junior for them going into this year. There's a few other guys that I'm missing out on here, but this team.
Yeah, Wesley Mooring.
Wesley Mooring, a sophomore who blew up, hit I think 9 bombs as a freshman last year. Who's a guy who's going to lead in power for them. Nathan Rowland, a guy that mistake on Mercer commit. Going to be the starting catcher this year after playing a lot of outfield last year with Sheffield being behind the plate. So I think that's going to be huge for them. Has a ton of athleticism behind the plate, 6'5" runner, a ton of power, big arm as well. I think he's a guy who can explode as a player for them and really be the guy for this Wolfpack as they make another run in the playoffs. And another team I really want to talk about, one I finished up here the other day, and that's Benedictine Military Academy, a team that, again, made another run to the playoffs, made it to the Sweet 16 before reaching up against one of the best lineups in the state last year in Stars Mill, who eventually won a state championship again. But this is a team that returns a ton of talent, 11 starters in total, both in the lineup and in the rotation. They have 3 committed seniors leading the rotations, led by Landon Ludwig, who's been one of the most explosive guys we saw this summer, 5'9", 5'10", but up to over the slot, 93, 94, can really blow up by guys. Good secondaries as well. He also hit 412 last spring, had 13 extra base hits, 29 RBIs. Another guy I mentioned for them, Amari Burris, is an upcoming 27 for them. He had 379 as a freshman last year for them in 28 games, which is huge. He's going to be locked into a middle infield role, and I think they're a team that could make a run in 4A and a team that we watch in a winnable region this upcoming spring.
Yeah, definitely. And just going through some of these that we've already got posted. North Cobb Christian, that's your team there.
Yeah. Can they repeat, And it's a ton of guys. They're 26 class, 27 class. So they're going to be good for years to come. This is a team that's really blown up over the last few years with talent. We've seen guys like Michael Molinex, who's at Georgia, Asher Saban, who's at Georgia as well. And they lose those 2 guys, return a ton of talent still. They have one of the most exciting outfields, I think, in the state. 3 sophomore guys, Austin Tambora, JD Offerhide. Excuse me, JD, if I messed that one up as well. And then on the other side, who am I missing here? On the outfield, Carson Bruce as well. Excuse me. So
and he'll be big on the mound as well this year.
Big on the mound, going to be the SP3 for this team as well. So this team is just depth, young depth. They've experience, again, back-to-back state champions. So these guys know how to win, and that's just a team that I love watching. It's a fun team that we'll see a bunch of spring, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch it this year and going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Truett Stafford is a freshman coming in
Oh
for him.
man, gotta really love him in the fall.
Yeah, really, really like him. So we'll get to see him at All State. So, so yeah, that's another team hunting for that three-peat. But yeah, just going through a couple more of these. Lee County is another one. We're getting down south this year, so we got a couple guys coming over on Saturday from them. Dura Butler kind of leading the way from them, who will probably see creeping to the low 90s for them on the mound. They stack up in a tough region, but they played Marist in a really strong series last year in the state playoffs. So look for them to fight in that region and make some noise there. But yeah, other than that, we got a handful of these to start knocking out as we're going to roll these out daily. We're going to have to start doubling up.
Please keep sending them in. Absolutely.
Yeah,
We still have 5 weeks of the
putting
season.
them in.
We want to see everybody. We want to know about everybody. We want you guys to reach out. Please reach out, DM either one of us, if coaches, if you have any questions with anything. We would love to hear about anything heading into this spring season that you feel relevant to talk about. So yeah, that's what we're here for. It's what we want to talk about. This is what this podcast is about you guys. So I'm excited to get into this 2025 spring.
Yeah, having these team previews is huge for us to help build our spring schedule. And like you mentioned, we'll have 3-4 guys, including Ian and I will be on the road this spring, trying to beat that number from last year as the games that we got to see. And we'll get things kicked off with the Georgia Dugout Club at Lake Point, where we get to see a lot of guys. So I'm sure we'll get into that here in a few episodes as we start getting closer to that February start date.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really all we have for you guys today. We really just want to kick you guys off, let you know we're back. What we're going to talk about this year. We're going to be here every week. Like Hudson mentioned, recording on Mondays, posting on Wednesdays. We will have full recaps every week of the high school season. We've mentioned how many games we saw and attended this past year. I mean, that will be beat in 2025. I have no doubt about that. Yep. Yeah. So there's a ton of coverage coming for you guys this upcoming spring. We wanted to be as vocal. We want you guys to reach out and tell me what you want to see on this podcast, what you want us to talk about, what you want to hear. Be as vocal as possible. This is going to be the podcast for the state of Georgia. I don't believe we have anything like this. So we want to make it bigger and better this year. So we'll be back every week, and we just appreciate you guys being here.
Yep, for sure. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely.